Hey folks, welcome back to Real Estate Investing Unmasked. Today we're going to talk about closing issues. So you've got your house in the market, you've received your offer, somebody said, hey, I'll buy your property for X amount of dollars, and you think that's awesome, you've accepted the offer, you're going through the motions, you've had your property inspected, you've had your property appraised, and you're ready to close. But something came up in the appraisal. The appraisal came back and said, you said that your property is worth this much, this is how much the buyer was wanting to buy it for, but I say the value is here. That could cause a lot of problems when it comes time to close escrow. Let's use some numbers so it makes it a little bit easier. Let's say that you're selling your property for $525,000. The buyer says, I'll give you the $525,000, but the appraiser says it's only worth $500,000. What do you do in this case? Well, in some cases, the buyer will have to come up with another $25,000, which is not usually the scenario. It's not usually something the buyer wants to do. Now, there are places like San Francisco where you market your property for $500,000. The property is worth about $700,000 or $800,000, and they offer you $1 million. It's a crazy market in San Francisco, but that's what they do. They offer very low, and they expect everybody to come in at whatever they think the house is worth, and then the appraiser does the rest. So let's say that your property comes in lower, like our case with the $500,000, and you say, okay, you got to come up with the other $25,000. The buyer has a couple of choices. They can either come up with the extra cash, or they can say, I'm not going to give you the $525. It's only worth $500. I'll give you the $500. It's up to you then to negotiate. If you find out that you can't go anything higher than the $500, then you're pretty much screwed. Unless you do one more thing. You can hire another appraiser to go out and take a look at your property. That way you can get more than one opinion. Now, if you get another appraiser and the difference is far enough off, you may have to get a third appraiser to go ahead and balance between the two. And once you find that third appraisal, then you'll be able to say, okay, here is definitely where my value is, and then you can make an arrangement with the buyer on whether they're going to buy the property or not, whether they're going to bring extra cash to the table or not. And when you have a situation like that and they need to back out, let them back out. Sometimes you can get their money, their earnest money, which is the money they put down to say, yes, I really am putting some backing behind this contract, this purchase contract. Sometimes you can get it, but most often there is a contingency on the appraisal coming through, most often. Now, sometimes buyers that are desperate will waive that contingency. If the buyer cannot bring in the extra cash in order to get the property because the appraised value is below the buying price, and they've waived their contingency, that means you as the seller get their earnest money. So if they put $5,000 down, if they put $10,000 down, if they put $100,000 down, and they do not have a contingency on getting out of the contract in case of appraisal, then they just screwed themselves. At this point, you get the earnest money, they get to go walk and find some other property or save up for another couple of years until they can afford to buy a house again. And then you got to put it on the market. Now this time, when you put it on the market, you already know what the appraiser is going to go for because you already have 1 to 3 different people who have given you their opinion. So at this case, at this point, that's when you'd be able to market it at the right price. Now hopefully, as you watch my other videos, you've been able to see how to market your property so that you don't run into that problem. But we need to cover those issues when you're selling your property of what happens when the bad things come down, like an appraisal that doesn't meet your standards or doesn't meet the price that you're trying to sell your property for. So if you enjoyed this video, I appreciate it if you give me a thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you next time, guys. Thanks for watching.